It's a new year and it's been a while since I've done a full studio tour. But that's a lot of work to film, so instead I wanted to show you a few relatively small changes I've made around here that I'm excited about for the coming year. Maybe some of these ideas will inspire you for your own studios and offices. Hi, I'm Aaron Parecki. If you're new here, I host weekly live streams where I share what's new in the world of live streaming and live video production, and answer questions about how to use gear like the ATEM Mini and the YoloBox. So let's get right into some of the upgrades I've made to my studio here recently. To start things out, I mounted an SD card reader under my desk with an extension cable that runs to the back. Now, part of my problem is that my Mac Mini actually lives in the rack back there, not at the desk, so I did create this problem for myself. But even if the computer did live up there, I would want it out of sight tucked under the desk, so I'd still have the same problem. This gives me an easy way to download footage from my cameras into my computer without having to run across the room to move SD cards back and forth. This is a little SD card reader that's just stuck to the underside of my desk with foam tape and connected to this USB hub with a short USB extension cable. I'll link both of these down below. Another upgrade I made to my desk is adding the Elgato Teleprompter. Last year, Elgato released a new product, the Elgato Prompter, which is a complete all-in-one teleprompter kit. Now, I've been using a teleprompter in my studio for years. The main one is this Gear TMP100 with a Lilliput 10-inch screen under it. This is actually a great combo. The monitor accepts HDMI and SDI inputs, and most importantly, the monitor can flip the image around so that it works in the mirror. But this is two separate parts to buy, and it's also a weird bit of gaff tape to hold it together. So that's why I was interested in the Elgato Prompter. The Elgato Prompter really is a complete kit. It's both the monitor as well as the mirror. Now, it's not an HDMI monitor, it's made specifically to connect to a computer. So it's just one USB cable to the computer for power as well as the video signal. And the monitor does handle the flip itself. Of course, the fact that it has only USB input is also sort of a downside because it means I can't do things I can do with my main one, like switch between showing my streaming status and my computer monitor or an Apple TV. So this is just a second monitor for my computer, which will be useful for things like being in a Zoom meeting or even if I'm watching the comments on a live stream. I'll save a full review of the Elgato Prompter for a different video, but I have it set up at the desk here and my computer is way back there. Now, normal USB cables can't really get that long. And that takes me to the next upgrade, and that is a fiber USB extension cable. My keyboard and my mouse are Bluetooth, but now that I have this Elgato Prompter and SD card reader that I want to connect to my computer, which is way back in the rack, I needed a different solution. Normal USB cables max out at about 6 feet or so, especially if you want them to support the high bandwidth of USB 3.1. HDMI cables have a similar problem. They max out around 20 feet, depending on the devices they're connected to. So I've been using this fiber HDMI cable to run the video signal to my monitor for a couple of years now. So I thought surely somebody must have made a fiber USB extension cable by now too. And sure enough, there are a bunch of them out there now. So now I have this really long USB cable going to the back of this desk where it's plugged into a powered USB hub. And I made sure to get a powered hub because the prompter is also powered over the same USB cable. So now that I have these two USB devices on the desk and a hub in the back in case I want to plug anything else in up here later. Moving on to the last upgrade at this desk. Normally I have my multi-view on the left monitor here so I can see all the angles when I'm doing a live stream. I have the ATEM Constellation 4ME with 40 inputs, so I'm always changing which 10 I'm looking at in these little windows. Also, since it's the 4ME, that means I have 4 different canvases I can prepare layouts on, and I don't have to fiddle with upstream keys while they are live on air. But I actually rarely take advantage of this because I usually forget that I have more than one ME like the ATEM Mini. So my solution was to add a second monitor above my main one so I can see more things at once. So now I can quickly switch between my different multi-views so I can see either all of the other MEs or I can switch to the one that shows 16 inputs. I'm hoping that by having this up here, I'll remind myself that I have more MEs so I can do cleaner transitions between scenes. Moving on back to the rack, where I made one really minor upgrade. This used to be a 16-port patch panel, but I had already filled it up and I still had a few more things I wanted to add into it. So I swapped it out for a 24-port patch panel to make room for a few more things. So on the left, I have the 4 outputs from the ATEM, which I use to send video feeds to streaming gear that I'm filming on the desk here. Like right now, I have the ATEM Mini Extreme set up and I have these 4 HDMI outputs going into 4 of the inputs on the ATEM Mini. Next to that, I have a regular network jack and then 3 red jacks. The 3 red jacks are connected to my Chaos router network, which is a separate network here that I can use to test packet loss and latency of streaming gear. Moving on a little bit farther, I now have HDMI outputs from both hyperdecks, which is useful because I've started to do a little bit more 4K work in here, even though my main switcher is only 1080. The Hyperdeck Plus has an HDMI output broken out into the patch panel, which can now output 4K. And that's in case I wanted to test any 4K gear on the table. I also added some more USB power outputs on the front since I was constantly finding myself needing more power jacks when I'm testing things out. And lastly, I spent a bunch of time the other day sorting through all of my SD cards and organizing and labeling them. I have these little 3D printed trays that hold all my SD cards now, so now everything's just really easy to find. I have one for empty cards, so I know I can always just reach there and grab one and start recording without worrying about how much space is left or whether there's anything else there that's important. These are all of my highest quality SD cards that can record 4K in my cameras or ProRes on the HyperDecks. I have another tray for slow and small cards. These are cards that are V30 or less or small, like 4 gigs or 8 gigs. I like having these around to load small clips for playing back on a YoloBox when I don't need to use the much more expensive V90 64 gig cards. I also have a tray for test clips. These are things like my stress test video clips in different resolutions and frame rates, so I can quickly pop that into the HyperDeck to start playing it back. I also have some really long 30 and 90-minute clips that I've used to test whether devices get out of sync after a long period of time. So that's my studio update for the start of 2024. I'm looking forward to testing out a bunch more gear here this year and sharing it with you all on this channel. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a video, and stop by one of my weekly live streams on Sundays if you have any questions. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.